A neighbor hears screaming in the woods. 2 screams, maybe 3, piercing through the darkness of an exclusive Texas neighborhood where nothing bad is supposed to happen. Then silence. An hour later, a black pickup truck drives away. When it returns in the middle of the night, a mother of 4 is gone forever. This is October 6, 2024, the last night anyone saw Suzanne Simpson alive. And what happened in the next 24 hours will prove exactly who killed her. Let me take you back to the beginning of that night. Before we dive in, like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss what comes next. Olmos Park, Texas. One of the wealthiest neighborhoods in San Antonio. $1 million homes, manicured lawns, Range Rovers in circular driveways. This is where Texas's elite live. Where privacy isn't just valued, it's enforced. At 520 East Olmos Drive sits a $1.5 million Mediterranean-style home. For children live here with their parents, Brad and Suzanne Simpson. From the outside, it looks perfect. But tonight, that perfection is about to shatter. Earlier that evening, Brad and Suzanne attended a party at the Argyle, one of the most exclusive members-only clubs in the American South. During the Civil War, the Argyle served as an arsenal. Today, it's where San Antonio's wealthiest families gather behind closed doors. Membership is so private that club representatives refuse to even confirm who belongs. Brad and Suzanne weren't members. They were guests that night, attending with their 5-year-old daughter. Witnesses saw them arguing. A verbal altercation, loud enough that other guests noticed. Uncomfortable enough that people still remember it. Around 8:30 p.m., Suzanne left with their daughter. She drove to H-E-B grocery store, still wearing her short black dress and tall tan heels. Surveillance cameras captured her walking through the aisles, sandy blonde hair partially pulled back. At 9:16 p.m., while driving to a friend's house, Suzanne called her mother. She said Brad had just assaulted her, that she was in pain, her arm, her back, her neck. At that exact moment, 9:16 p.m., Suzanne's cell phone service was suspended. Brad Simpson called the phone company and had his wife's phone service cut off. While she was reporting his violence, he was cutting off her ability to call for help. Suzanne visited a friend's house briefly at 9:25 p.m. Then she made a fatal decision. She drove home. Between 10 and 11 p.m., a neighbor across the street heard shouting outside his bedroom window. He looked out and saw Brad and Suzanne Simpson in a physical altercation in their front yard. Brad was grabbing Suzanne by her upper torso, trying to control her body. She was fighting to break free. The neighbor would later tell police that Brad was clearly attempting to keep Miss Simpson from running away. For approximately 1 minute, they struggled. Then Suzanne broke loose. She ran westward toward a densely wooded area near their property. Brad chased after her into the darkness. The neighbor grabbed a flashlight and went outside. That's when he heard the screaming. 2 to 3 screams from the wooded area. Screams he believed came from Suzanne Simpson. Then silence. The neighbor stood in the darkness, listening. He couldn't see them anymore. The woods were too thick, too dark. He went back inside. About an hour later, close to midnight, he heard Brad Simpson's black 2019 GMC Sierra pickup truck start up. He watched from his window as the truck backed out of the driveway and drove away. Brad didn't return for 1 to 2 hours. Where did he go during those hours while his wife was missing? That was the last time anyone heard Suzanne Simpson's voice. The next morning, Suzanne was supposed to pick up her daughter from school. She never showed up. Friends started calling, texting. No response. Suzanne Simpson, a devoted mother who coordinated every family birthday, who never missed a school pickup, had vanished. At 9:57 p.m. on October 7th, one of Suzanne's friends reported her missing to Olmos Park police. Shortly after, Brad Simpson called police himself. He said his wife was missing, that he last saw her Monday morning when he peeked into a separate room and observed his wife asleep. But that was a lie, because Suzanne Simpson was already dead, and Brad Simpson knows exactly what he did to her. Before October 6, 2024, Suzanne had told her personal banker something chilling. "If I go missing, look for me in a lake." She knew she was in danger. She knew what Brad was capable of. And she tried to leave breadcrumbs in case the worst happened. What you're about to hear is the most disturbing 24 hours of evidence I've ever covered. Because Brad Simpson didn't just kill his wife, he spent an entire day covering it up. And surveillance cameras caught everything. To understand what happened to Suzanne Simpson, you need to know who she was. Suzanne Clark Simpson was 51 years old, a successful realtor with Nick's Realty Company. Her co-workers described her as a bright light. Friends said she lit up every room she walked into. One friend later told reporters, "It was hard to find a solo photo of Suzanne because everyone gravitated toward her. She loved Katy Perry's song Firework. She was obsessed with microwavable Indian food. Chris Madrid's burgers were her go-to meal. And hilariously, she was a terrible driver. Her friends joked about it constantly. Suzanne was the ultimate supermom. She coordinated all the family birthdays. She planned every Christmas celebration. She became the de facto travel agent for extended family trips because of her real estate connections. Though cooking wasn't her favorite activity, everyone loved her mashed potatoes." Brad's brother, Brad Simpson, would later say, "She is deeply missed, and life just isn't the same without her." Past tense. Because even Barton knew Suzanne was gone. Suzanne and Brad had 4 children together. From the outside, they seemed to have everything. The big house in Olmos Park, the expensive cars, the exclusive social circle. Brad Simpson was 53 years old, vice president of Capital Well Services LLC since 2012. He invested in real estate and construction businesses around Central Texas. Some newspapers called him a tycoon, but behind the facade of wealth and success, there were cracks. Financial pressure was mounting. Court documents reveal that American Express had sued Brad. Liens had been placed on the couple. Despite living in a $1.5 million home, they still owed $680,000 on the mortgage. And there was something darker: violence. In August 2023, more than a year before Suzanne disappeared, Brad physically assaulted her. We know this because investigators later found notes on Brad's burned cell phones titled "This Next Life" and "Last Will and Testament. Apologies for hurting his wife." 1 year before Suzanne vanished, Brad sent a text message to a friend after taking Suzanne's phone during an argument. "I still feel bad about tonight. I never should have grabbed her phone and drove off, but she was so protective of it." Why was Suzanne protective of her phone? Because it was her lifeline, her connection to the outside world, her only way to call for help. And Brad knew it. On October 23, 2024, just weeks after Suzanne disappeared, Texas Rangers interviewed Suzanne's personal banker. What she told them painted a disturbing picture. Brad would regularly take Suzanne's phone away, control it, control her. When he took it, he would tell Suzanne to tell the children she had lost it, gaslighting her, making her complicit in her own isolation. This was a pattern, not a one-time incident, a systematic campaign of control. But what the banker said next stopped investigators cold. In August 2024, just 2 months before Suzanne disappeared, Suzanne told her banker, "If I go missing, look for me in a lake." Not a general fear, not a vague concern, a specific warning. Suzanne knew she was in danger. She knew what Brad was capable of, and she was trying to leave breadcrumbs. But Suzanne never made it to a lake. The culture of privacy at the Argyle, the code of silence in wealthy communities, allowed violence to occur without intervention. People saw Brad and Suzanne arguing at the party. People noticed. But in a place like the Argyle, you don't get involved. You don't make waves. You protect the privacy of the membership. And Suzanne paid the price for that silence. After leaving the Argyle around 8:30 p.m. with her daughter, Suzanne stopped at H-E-B grocery store. Surveillance video shows them shopping together. The little girl holding her mother's hand. Neither knowing these would be their last normal moments together. While driving to a friend's house at 9:16 p.m., Suzanne called her mother and reported the assault. At that exact moment, Brad suspended her phone service. Think about the coldness of that action, the calculation. While his wife was reporting his violence, he was already 3 steps ahead, cutting off her ability to escape or call for help again. Suzanne visited a friend's house at 9:25 p.m. She was there briefly, maybe looking for support, maybe trying to figure out what to do next. But eventually, she made the fatal decision to go home. Why did she go back? We'll never know for certain. Maybe she thought Brad had calmed down. Maybe she was worried about her other children. Maybe she felt she had no choice. When Suzanne drove up to 520 East Olmos Drive that night, she had no idea she would never leave that property alive. The neighbor witnessed the physical struggle. Suzanne breaking free, running toward the woods, Brad chasing her, then screaming from the darkness, then nothing. Around midnight, Brad's truck left. 1 to 2 hours later, it returned. Where did Brad go during those hours? What did he do with Suzanne's body? The answer begins at 12:33 a.m. on October 7, 2024, when surveillance cameras captured Brad's black GMC truck at a local grocery store. The truck bed was empty except for one item, a large ice chest. Just hours earlier, the neighbor had heard screaming from the woods. Now Brad's truck bed was nearly empty. Where was Suzanne? At 7:15 a.m., Suzanne's cell phone pinged for the last time in a business parking lot in Olmos Park. Then her phone went dark forever. At 7:53 a.m., Brad dropped his 5-year-old daughter off at Howard Early Childhood Center, the same little girl who had been at the Argyle party, who had been with Suzanne at HEB just hours before her mother vanished. Surveillance footage from the school captured what was in Brad's truck bed that morning. At least 2 white trash bags with red strings, a large ice chest, and what appeared to be other items covered by a blue tarp. That 5-year-old daughter was in the truck with those items, sitting in the back seat while evidence of her mother's murder was just feet away. What Brad Simpson did next shows a level of planning that's almost impossible to comprehend. He bought cement. He bought cleaning supplies. He disposed of evidence at a dump. And every single move was caught on camera. If you're still watching, you're clearly interested in real cases told in full. Like, share, subscribe now, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss what comes next. October 7th, 2024. The morning after Suzanne Simpson disappeared. Between dropping his daughter at school and 9:15 a.m., Brad loaded something into his truck. Something large. Something that needed to be concealed. At 9:15 a.m., Brad pulled into a Whataburger in Boerne, a town about 30 miles north of San Antonio. He ordered food and paid with his debit card, creating a digital record. Surveillance cameras captured his truck bed. Now there were 3 white trash bags instead of 2. A large heavy-duty trash can that wasn't there before. The ice chest, and a large bulky item wrapped and secured in a blue tarp. On top of the tarp, a silver metal firewood rack positioned specifically to conceal and weigh the tarp down. The affidavit noted, upon further observation of the blue tarp, your affiant believes that there is an unknown object concealed within the blue tarp due to its shape and size, and it being secured by a strap/rope. The shape, the size, the way it was secured and weighted down. At 9:53 a.m., geolocation data shows Brad arriving at a Home Depot in Boerne. Surveillance cameras captured exactly what he purchased. 2 bags of cement, each weighing 50 to 80 pounds. A construction bucket with a lid. A box of 32-ounce heavy-duty trash bags. 1 bottle of Clorox disinfectant spray. Insect repellent. That last item tells us something. It's October in Texas. Mild weather. Why insect repellent? Because Brad knew he was going to spend time outside. In the woods. At the ranch. Somewhere with bugs. While in the Home Depot parking lot, a man approached Brad's truck. Brad asked him a question that was later reported to police. Where's the nearest dump in Boerne? A stranger. A random witness. Brad was asking for directions to the dump. This shows how poorly he was planning. How panicked he was. If you're covering up a murder, you don't ask strangers where the dump is. You don't create witnesses. But Brad did. After getting directions, Brad did something that shows he understood technology could track him. While still in the parking lot, he placed his cell phone in lockdown mode. FBI forensic examiners later explained this process. When you cycle your phone on and off repeatedly, It prevents data collection. It stops location tracking. It stops the phone from pinging cell towers. The FBI said lockdown mode is extremely rare. It's typically done by someone who knows how phones work. Someone who understands digital forensics. Someone actively trying to avoid detection. At 10:15 a.m., surveillance video from a business near the Kendall County Solid Waste Facility captured Brad's truck driving away from the dump. The white trash bags were gone. What was in those bags? Suzanne's body? Parts of her body? Her clothes? The weapon? Evidence from the crime scene? We don't know, because by the time police realized they needed to search that landfill 8 days later, whatever Brad disposed of was buried under tons of garbage. Daily operations had continued, compacting, covering with dirt, more garbage piled on top. Recovery became virtually impossible. After leaving the dump, Brad drove to a gas station. Surveillance footage shows him filling up his truck with his debit card, then paying cash for 2 one-gallon jugs of water. Why cash for the water? Was he trying to avoid a paper trail? When he left the gas station, cameras caught something else. Brad had changed his shoes. Earlier that morning, he wore black sandals. Now he was wearing dark-colored cowboy-style boots. Why change shoes in the middle of this trip? Was there blood on the sandals? Dirt from the dump? Evidence he needed to destroy? Between 11:15 a.m. and 1 p.m., Brad's phone location data shows him traveling to Bandera County, about 50 miles northwest of San Antonio. This is where the Simpson family owns a ranch property. What did Brad do at that ranch for nearly 2 hours? On October 9th, when Texas Rangers executed a search warrant at the Bandera Ranch, they discovered a burn site. At that site, a burned laptop and multiple burned cell phones belonging to Brad Simpson. Inside the burned phones, forensic technicians recovered 2 notes that had somehow survived the fire. The notes were titled, "This Next Life," and "Last Will and Testament." The notes were created on October 8, 2024, 2 days after Suzanne disappeared. In them, Brad apologized for physically assaulting Suzanne in August 2023. He apologized for assaulting her again on October 6, 2024. He knew what he had done, and he was trying to destroy the evidence. At 1 p.m., Brad returned home to Olmos Park. Later that afternoon at 4:37 p.m., staff at Howard Early Childhood Center called Olmos Park Police. Brad's 5-year-old daughter had told school employees something disturbing. She said her parents had been fighting. She said her dad hit her mom in the face. She said he possibly pushed her mom into a wall. She said he hurt her mom's elbow inside their residence. A 5-year-old child witnessing violence, reporting it to school counselors. But by the time the school called police, it was already too late. Suzanne was gone. That evening, when Suzanne's friend reported her missing at 9:57 p.m., Brad called police himself shortly after. But his story immediately had problems. First, Brad told police he last saw Suzanne Monday morning when he peeked into a separate room and observed his wife asleep. But this contradicted what he told patrol officers initially. He had said he saw her Sunday night, not Monday morning. He also claimed Suzanne lost her cell phone at HEB Sunday night. But investigators already knew this was false. Her service had been suspended at the request of the account subscriber. Brad had cut it off himself, then lied about it. On October 8th, Olmos Park police tried to interview Brad about his wife's disappearance. Brad didn't show up. Police Chief Fidel Villegas told Texas Rangers that Brad had been uncooperative with the investigation. He was refusing to answer questions, refusing to help find his wife. Instead, Brad reached out to someone for help. James Cotter, Brad's longtime business partner and friend. Age 65. Early on October 8th, Brad texted Cotter, "If you're in Bandera, can you haul ass and meet me at your house? I don't have much time." Later that day, "Okay, make sure to leave all that shit in the pump house, especially the gun. And, sorry for the urgency, but you're all I got especially now. Social media is destroying me. The gun. What gun?" And what was James Cotter about to do? Brad Simpson wasn't working alone. His business partner was about to help him hide evidence that would become critical to this case. and what they tried to conceal tells us everything about what Brad was planning. October 8, 2024. Brad Simpson needed help, and he turned to the one person he thought he could trust. James Cotter had known Brad for years. They worked together at Capital Well Services. They were close friends. And after receiving Brad's desperate text messages, Cotter went to Brad's home. He entered Brad's gun room, a secure vault where Brad kept his weapons, and he removed an AK-47 rifle. Not just any AK-47. This was a Chinese-manufactured 7.62 by 39 mm caliber select-fire rifle, modified to fire automatically, a machine gun. The weapon wasn't registered with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. It wasn't classified as a relic or curio. It was an illegal, fully automatic weapon, and it had a bullet hole in its wooden stock. Why was there a bullet hole? Had the weapon been fired? Had it been used? Cotter took the AK-47 from Brad's vault and hid it in his own home, behind a television mounted in his bedroom. The gun had a string attached to its sight that would allow it to be retrieved out of the void in the wall. A pre-planned hiding spot. Why did Brad need this gun hidden? What was he planning to do with it? The affidavit states Brad was trying to hide the weapon to impair its availability as evidence. While Cotter was hiding the gun, police were closing in on Brad. On October 9, 2024, at 4 a.m., Texas Rangers arrested Brad Simpson in Kendall County. He was charged with assault, family violence, and unlawful restraint. During the arrest, police noted that Brad showed little emotion concerning his wife's disappearance. His bond was set at $2 million. While Brad sat in jail, investigators launched a massive search for Suzanne. Over 100 law enforcement officers searched the wooded area near the Simpsons' home. Texas Rangers, Texas Department of Public Safety, Olmos Park Police, Texas Search and Rescue, cadaver dogs, GPS technology. They found 2 articles of interest that were sent for forensic testing. But they didn't find Suzanne. On October 10th, Police Chief Fidel Villegas held a press conference. He released surveillance photos of Suzanne from the Argyle. She's wearing her black dress and heels, hair partially pulled back, smiling at the camera. Chief Villegas made a desperate plea. Suzanne, if you're out there, if you're alive and hiding, please come home. Your children love you. Your family loves you. We just want you safe. But Chief Villegas knew the truth. Suzanne wasn't hiding. On October 11th, investigators searched an area along Interstate 10 in Boerne. Nothing. On October 15th, investigators executed a search warrant at the Southeast Behar County landfill on Tessman Road. 25 San Antonio police cadets spent 6 days in hazmat suits searching through mountains of garbage. Excavators dug through piles of waste. On October 21st, the search ended. Texas DPS announced they found no evidence connected to Suzanne at the landfill. Whatever Brad had thrown away was gone forever. Buried, compacted, destroyed. That same day, October 21st, 2024, police arrested James Cotter. When Olmos Park police executed a search warrant at Cotter's home, they brought ATF-K, 9 units trained to detect firearms and explosives. The K-9s led officers to Cotter's bedroom, to the television mounted on the wall. Behind that television, they found the AK-47 hidden in the wall cavity, the string still attached to the sight for easy retrieval. Cotter was arrested and charged with possession of a prohibited weapon and tampering with evidence with intent to impair an investigation. He posted bond and was released. He was required to wear a GPS ankle monitor. For an entire year, Cotter wore that monitor. He cooperated with investigators. He likely cut a deal. Then, on October 22, 2025, during a pre-trial hearing, Cotter's attorney asked Judge Joel Perez to remove the GPS monitor, citing personal and professional reasons. The state argued against it. The investigation was ongoing. Suzanne's body still hadn't been found, but Judge Perez approved the request. The GPS monitor was removed. James Cotter was now free to move around without tracking. Court records are sealed. There's a gag order in the case. Nobody can speak to the media about what deal Cotter made or what testimony he might provide. But one thing is clear: James Cotter helped Brad Simpson hide evidence. And that evidence included an illegal machine gun. While Cotter walked free, Brad Simpson remained in jail. And on November 7, 2024, exactly 1 month after Suzanne disappeared, prosecutors brought the charge everyone was waiting for. Brad Simpson was formally charged with murder. The arrest warrant affidavit revealed evidence that hadn't been made public before. Evidence so damning that prosecutors felt confident charging murder without a body. On a reciprocating saw found during the investigation, forensic technicians identified Suzanne Simpson's DNA. A reciprocating saw, a demolition tool, a handheld power tool designed to cut through tough materials. Wood, hard plastic, metal, bone. Suzanne's DNA was on this saw. What did Brad do with that saw? The saw had been concealed on October 8, 2024, 2 days after Suzanne disappeared. The same day Brad was texting Cotter to hide the AK-47. The same day Brad was destroying his phones and laptop. A systematic cover-up. Hide the saw, hide the gun, burn the electronics, dispose of the body. On November 7th, Brad Simpson was indicted on 4 counts: murder, tampering with a corpse, tampering with physical evidence, possession of a prohibited weapon. But there was more: an aggravated assault charge. Aggravated assault with a deadly weapon causing serious bodily injury to a family member. The deadly weapon was specified as the hands of the defendant and an object unknown to the grand jury. His hands, and something else. Something that left Suzanne with serious bodily injuries before she died. This is a first-degree felony in Texas carrying a maximum sentence of life in prison. Then federal prosecutors got involved. Brad was charged with a federal felony for unlawfully possessing an unregistered short-barreled rifle. This is separate from the AK-47. Maximum federal punishment: 10 years in prison and a $250,000 fine. The federal charge created a federal detainer. This means that even if Brad somehow posted his state bond, he couldn't be released. Federal authorities would immediately take him into custody. Brad Simpson wasn't going anywhere. On December 3, 2024, Brad appeared in court for his arraignment. He entered a plea of not guilty to all charges. His bond was set at $3 million. His attorney, Stephen Gilmore, immediately began filing motions. On November 14, 2024, Gilmore filed a motion for an examining trial requiring the state to provide sufficient evidence of probable cause. But on December 3rd, a grand jury indicted Brad on murder charges, making the examining trial unnecessary. Gilmore filed another motion to quash the murder indictment. His argument: there's no body, there's no medical examiner's report. The evidence is vague, indefinite, and hinders the defendant from mounting a proper defense. How can you charge someone with murder when you can't prove the victim is dead? It's a fair legal question, but prosecutors believe they can prove Brad killed Suzanne even without her body. And they have a legal strategy that could allow Suzanne's own voice to convict her killer. As we continue, like, share, subscribe, and turn on notification. While Brad Simpson sat in Behar County Jail refusing to cooperate, something unprecedented happened. His own family turned against him. On November 6, 2024, the day before Brad was formally charged with murder, his brother Barton Simpson released a public statement. Not a statement of support, a condemnation. Until Brad chooses to cooperate, we will continue to cooperate for him, as we have from the very beginning of this heartbreaking ordeal. This is not how he was raised, and this is not who we are. Our parents instilled in us the values of honoring and protecting others, and they are truly remarkable people. The devastation this has caused to our family is overwhelming. Brad's refusal to cooperate is unacceptable. My sister and brother-in-law have stepped up to take care of the children, but the impact on our parents has been shattering. Our lives have been irreparably changed. Brad's own brother publicly called his refusal to cooperate unacceptable. His brother was begging him to tell the truth, to tell police where Suzanne's body is. But Brad remained silent. At a court hearing in December 2024, before the judge imposed a gag order, Barton spoke to reporters. He was asked what it was like seeing his brother in handcuffs for the first time. "It's horribly frustrating," Barton said, his voice breaking. "Very frustrating for all the kids. My brother's children are surrounded with love and caring and compassion, and are doing as well as you think you could for anybody in this situation." He paused, then said something that cuts to the heart of this tragedy. "He does not seem like the same person. It just made me sad." Barton's sister and brother-in-law took custody of Brad and Suzanne's 4 children. For kids who lost their mother. For kids whose father is in jail charged with murder. The oldest daughter, Chandler Simpson, was 20 years old when her mother disappeared. She had been studying fashion design in Paris and New York for 2 years, living her dream. Then October 6, 2024 happened, and her world shattered. On November 5, 2024, 1 month after her mother vanished, Chandler posted something on Instagram that went viral. She posted images of herself wearing a white ribbon. The caption was addressed to the community of Alamo Heights. She called out the Alamo Heights community for failing to educate youth about domestic violence and sexual assault. She wrote, "Shame on Alamo Heights for not educating the youth and community on domestic violence and sexual assault, as women across the world suffer in silence as victims." She urged other women from the AHHS community, Alamo Heights High School, who experienced abuse to speak up. She ended by asking people to stand with us in silence for my mother at the November 13th court hearing. After the December indictment, Chandler posted again, "My sibling and I are my mother's voice, soul, and body, as my mom devoted her life to loving us, making us a home, and helping others find theirs. Now without her, we are broken and beginning to build our new home. Let my mom's sick name not be remembered in mutilation, but in light, salvation, and Christ." Think about what Chandler was doing. Her mother was missing, presumed dead. Her father was in jail. And instead of hiding, she was using her platform to advocate for other victims, to demand change. The youngest child, the 5-year-old daughter who was at the Argyle party, who was in the truck with the evidence, has been in therapy since October 9th, 2024, for over a year now, trying to process what she witnessed. On September 9th, 2025, prosecutors subpoenaed the therapy records for the 2 youngest Simpson children. Records that might contain statements about what they saw, what they heard, what they know. In December 2024, Brad appeared via Zoom from jail for a Child Protective Services hearing in Behar County Children's Court. He was fighting for visitation rights. Suzanne's attorney questioned him. Brad pleaded the Fifth Amendment. He refused to answer any questions about his own children, about their well-being, about what they witnessed. The man fighting for the right to see his kids refused to even talk about them. While Brad's family cooperated with investigators, Suzanne's family was falling apart with grief. On October 3, 2025, just days before the 1-year anniversary of Suzanne's disappearance, Teresa Clark, Suzanne's sister, was arrested in Travis County. She was charged with harassment of 4 members of Brad Simpson's family. The harassment had occurred on December 12, 2024, 2 months after Suzanne vanished. But the arrest didn't come until 10 months later. According to court documents, she allegedly sent inappropriate material to family members and waged a vigorous social media campaign against the Simpson family. Teresa had previously been admonished by Judge Joel Perez for violating the gag order by speaking about the case on a podcast. The charges are Class B misdemeanors. Teresa was released on October 5, 2025, just 2 days after her arrest. But the arrest reveals the depth of the family's pain. Teresa's sister is missing, presumed dead, and Teresa is so consumed with rage and grief that she lashes out. This is what murder does to families. It doesn't just destroy the victim. It creates ripples of devastation that spread outward, consuming everyone in its path. 2 families torn apart, 4 children traumatized, a sister so angry she crosses legal lines, a brother so ashamed he publicly condemns his own sibling. While the families suffered, Suzanne's memory was being preserved. The San Antonio Area Foundation created the Suzanne Clark Simpson Memorial Fund, raising money for scholarships in Suzanne's name. The website reads, This fund honors a life lived with grace, dignity, and character. It will celebrate her life and carry her light through community impact. Her employer, Nick's Realty Company, released a statement. Suzanne Simpson is a bright light in our company. She is beloved by her coworkers, her clients, and everyone who knows her. Present tense. As if speaking Suzanne's name in the present could somehow bring her back. But Suzanne never came home. In September 2025, the house at 520 East Olmos Drive was sold in a private sale for $1.2 million. Brad had transferred his rights to the property to the executors of Suzanne's will in June 2025. The $680,000 remaining mortgage was paid off. Whatever remained went into trust for the children. The house where Suzanne raised her kids, where she planned birthdays and made mashed potatoes. It's owned by strangers now. Her children will never go back there. On December 5, 2024, Police Chief Fidel Villegas met with Suzanne's family and told them about the reciprocating saw. He told them that Suzanne's DNA had been found on it, that this was part of the evidence presented to the grand jury. Imagine being Suzanne's sister, her mother. Imagine hearing that your loved one's DNA was found on a demolition saw. There was also blood found in Brad's truck. But strangely, the blood wasn't Suzanne's. It was Brad's. Why was Brad's blood in his truck? Did Suzanne fight back? Did he cut himself while using the saw? Did he injure himself during disposal? If the story is affecting you, that's normal. These aren't just facts. This was someone's life, someone's mother. If you or someone you know is experiencing domestic violence, the National Domestic Violence Hotline is 1-800-799-7233. They're available 24/7. Now let me tell you about the legal strategy that could allow Suzanne to speak from beyond the grave. Prosecuting a murder case without a body is one of the most difficult challenges in criminal law. Historically, it was almost impossible. The principle was simple. No body, no murder conviction. But in modern cases, prosecutors have successfully convicted murderers without bodies by building overwhelming circumstantial evidence. And in this case, that evidence is substantial. But prosecutors have something even more powerful. They have Suzanne's voice, and they're requesting permission to use a legal doctrine that could make sure the jury hears it. Forfeiture by wrongdoing. This is a legal principle that allows prosecutors to introduce statements from a victim if the defendant killed the victim specifically to prevent them from testifying. In other words, if you murder someone to silence them, their prior statements about your abuse can be used against you in court. The requirements are strict. Prosecutors must prove that the defendant's specific intention in committing the murder was to ensure the victim would not give testimony. On January 20th, 2026, prosecutors filed a request for a forfeiture by wrongdoing hearing. They're asking Judge Joel Perez to allow them to introduce Suzanne's statements at trial. If granted, the jury could hear Suzanne's call to her mother at 9:16 p.m. on October 6, 2024, reporting Brad's assault. Suzanne's statements to her banker. If I go missing, look for me in a lake. Suzanne's daughter's statements to school counselors about Brad hitting her mother. Potentially other statements Suzanne made to friends and family about Brad's violence and controlling behavior. A legal expert explained the significance. Forfeiture by wrongdoing applies only when the defendant's purpose in engaging in the unlawful act was to secure the unavailability of the witness. In other words, the specific intention of the action was to ensure that they would not give testimony. This case fits that requirement. Suzanne called her mother and said Brad assaulted her. At that exact moment, Brad suspended her phone service. Why? To prevent her from making more calls. To prevent her from calling police. To prevent her from testifying. Later that night, Brad chased Suzanne into the woods and she was never seen again. Brad didn't kill Suzanne in a fit of rage and then panic. The evidence shows planning, calculation. He cut off her phone before he killed her. That's premeditation. Think about the poetic justice if this is granted. Brad tried to control Suzanne. He took her phone away. He cut off her service. He isolated her from help. He chased her into the woods and killed her. But he couldn't erase what she'd already said. He couldn't destroy the record of his abuse. He couldn't silence her completely. Suzanne left breadcrumbs. She told her banker to look for her in a lake. She called her mother and reported the assault. She created a record, and now that record could speak for her. The prosecution is also building their case around the pattern of abuse. The August 2023 assault that Brad admitted to in his burned phone notes. The text message from a year before where Brad admitted to grabbing Suzanne's phone and driving off. The banker's testimony about Brad regularly taking Suzanne's phone and making her tell the children she lost it. The evidence of financial pressure, the American Express lawsuit, the liens, the massive mortgage debt. All of this establishes motive. It shows a pattern of escalating control and violence. It shows a man who was losing control of his wife, his finances, his life. And on October 6, 2024, that loss of control became lethal. Between September 26 and September 30, 2025, prosecutors subpoenaed extensive financial records. Chase Bank records for Brad's accounts. Bank of America records for both Brad and Suzanne. TD Bank and UBS records for Suzanne. Even James Cotter's Chase account. They were building a financial picture, looking for motive, evidence of financial abuse, suspicious transactions. The defense will argue, where's the body? Where's the proof she's actually dead? They'll point out that Suzanne's body has never been found, that no medical examiner has determined a cause of death, that maybe Suzanne ran away, maybe she's hiding, maybe she wanted to disappear. But this argument crumbles under scrutiny. Suzanne would never abandon her children. Her entire life revolved around them. She coordinated their birthdays. She planned their vacations. She was at every school event. And there's no evidence she's alive. For nearly 16 months now, there has been zero activity on her credit cards, bank accounts, or phone. No one has seen her. No one has heard from her. Suzanne Simpson is dead. Everyone knows it. Even without a body, the evidence is overwhelming. A neighbor witnessed Brad assaulting Suzanne and chasing her into the woods. The neighbor heard screaming from those woods. Brad's truck left in the middle of the night. Surveillance cameras captured suspicious items in his truck the next morning. Brad bought cement, trash bags, and cleaning supplies. He disposed of something at a dump. He burned his phones and laptop containing confessions. He hid a reciprocating saw with Suzanne's DNA on it. He tried to hide an illegal AK-47. His 5-year-old daughter told counselors Brad hit Suzanne. Brad suspended Suzanne's phone service while she was calling for help. Brad changed his story to police multiple times. Brad refused to cooperate with investigators. Brad's own brother publicly condemned him. Each piece of evidence, standing alone, might be explained away. But together, they paint an undeniable picture. There's also the reciprocating saw, designed to cut through tough materials. Wood, plastic, metal, bone. Why was Suzanne's DNA on a demolition saw? What did Brad do with that saw? The prosecution doesn't have to prove exactly what happened. They just have to prove that Brad killed Suzanne. And then there's the AK-47, the illegal machine gun with a bullet hole in the stock. The gun Brad desperately needed hidden. We don't know if that gun was used in Suzanne's murder, but we know Brad was trying to keep police from finding it. In December 2024, a hearing was held where Brad was allowed to receive letters from his 15-year-old son. By September 2025, his bond was modified to allow phone calls with this son. But for his other children, for questions about what happened to their mother, Brad invokes the Fifth Amendment. He refuses to speak. Brad Simpson has been in jail for 16 months now. His trial was supposed to start, but delays keep pushing it back. What happens next could determine whether justice can be served even when the victim can't be buried. If you're still watching, you're clearly interested in real cases told in full. Like, share, subscribe now, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss what comes next. January 20th, 2026. Brad Simpson appeared in court for a pretrial hearing. The trial had been tentatively scheduled for February 13th, 2026, just 3 weeks away. But prosecutors told Judge Joel Perez they weren't ready. Waves of more evidence over time had been coming in. The FBI was still processing items. The crime lab was still analyzing DNA. They needed more time. Defense attorney Stephen Gilmore argued that he was confident prosecutors had turned everything over, but he was less confident about law enforcement. It was a subtle dig. Gilmore was suggesting that police might be conducting searches without informing the defense, building their case in secret. In a February 2025 hearing, prosecutors revealed they had received 1 terabyte of data with 6 more terabytes expected from Texas Rangers. The sheer volume of evidence was staggering. Judge Perez granted the prosecution's motion for a 60-day continuance. The trial was delayed. As of February 2026, a new trial date has not been set. Defense filings have attacked the investigation from multiple angles. In January 2026, Gilmore filed a motion claiming Police Chief Villegas made a reprehensible decision to allow Olmos Park's mayor to privately review evidence. The defense is arguing that evidence handling has been compromised. But when the trial does happen, prosecutors will present their case piece by piece. The jury will see surveillance footage of Brad buying cement and trash bags. They'll hear from the neighbor who witnessed the assault and heard the screaming. They'll learn about the reciprocating saw with Suzanne's DNA. They'll see the text messages between Brad and Cotter about hiding the gun. If the forfeiture by wrongdoing motion is granted, they'll hear Suzanne's call to her mother reporting the assault. They'll learn about Brad suspending her phone service at the exact moment she was calling for help. They'll hear from the 5-year-old daughter who told school counselors that Daddy hit Mommy. They'll learn about the pattern of abuse, the phone control, the physical violence, the isolation, the financial pressure, and they'll ask themselves, is there any reasonable doubt that Brad Simpson killed his wife? Stephen Gilmore is a skilled attorney. He will attack every piece of evidence. He will question every witness. He will argue that without a body, without a cause of death, the state cannot prove murder beyond a reasonable doubt. And legally, he's not wrong to make that argument. It's his job to defend his client. But here's what Gilmore can't explain away. Why did Brad suspend Suzanne's phone service? Why did Brad buy cement and trash bags the morning after she disappeared? Why did Brad dispose of something at a dump? Why did Brad burn his phones and laptop? Why did Brad hide a reciprocating saw with Suzanne's DNA? Why did Brad refuse to cooperate with police? Why did Brad's own brother publicly condemn him? The defense can raise questions about individual pieces of evidence, but they can't explain the totality of Brad's behavior. Innocent people don't act this way. As of February 2026, Brad Simpson remains in Behar County Jail on a $3 million bond. He has been incarcerated for 16 months. 16 months of refusing to cooperate. 16 months of silence about what he did to Suzanne. The federal charge for the unregistered short-barreled rifle carries a maximum of 10 years and a $250,000 fine. But more importantly, it creates a federal detainer. Even if Brad somehow posted his $3 million state bond, federal authorities would immediately take him into custody. He cannot be released. His children have been without both parents for 16 months. His oldest daughter has spent over a year advocating for domestic violence awareness. His youngest daughter has spent over a year in therapy. And for 16 months, Suzanne's body has been out there somewhere, waiting to be found. Where is she? Investigators believe her remains are in one of 3 locations. The first possibility, the Bandera County Ranch. Brad spent nearly 2 hours there on October 7th. He built a fire pit. He burned his electronics. The ranch covers a large area with wooded sections and open fields. If Suzanne is buried there, she could be anywhere. The second possibility, the Kendall County Solid Waste Facility. Whatever Brad threw away on October 7th is buried under tons of waste. 8 days of operations had continued before police began searching. Inaccessible. Lost forever. The third possibility, somewhere along the route Brad traveled between Olmos Park, Bernie, and Bandera County. Brad's phone was in lockdown mode for portions of that trip, meaning there are gaps in the location data. Did he stop along a rural road? Did he bury her in the woods? Did he dump her in a body of water? Remember what Suzanne told her banker. If I go missing, look for me in a lake. Investigators have searched bodies of water in the area. They've searched along highways. They've used cadaver dogs and ground-penetrating radar. Nothing. But here's the thing. Brad's silence is also evidence. An innocent person doesn't refuse to cooperate when their spouse goes missing. An innocent person doesn't hide weapons and burn electronics. An innocent person doesn't buy cement and trash bags the morning after their wife vanishes. Brad's refusal to help find Suzanne is, in itself, proof of his guilt. In addition to the murder charge, Brad faces aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, first-degree felony, up to life in prison. Tampering with a corpse, second-degree felony, up to 20 years. Tampering with physical evidence, third-degree felony, up to 10 years. Possession of a prohibited weapon, third-degree felony, up to 10 years. And the federal charge, up to 10 years federal, $250,000 fine. If convicted on all counts and sentenced to the maximum, Brad could die in prison. But the murder charge is what matters most. Because that's the charge that says, you killed Suzanne Simpson. You took a mother away from her children. You silenced a woman who was trying to escape your abuse. Trials are unpredictable. Juries are unpredictable. The defense only needs to create reasonable doubt in the mind of one juror to avoid a conviction. But even without Suzanne's body, the case is strong. Circumstantial evidence has convicted murderers before, and this case has more than just circumstantial evidence. It has physical evidence. It has witness testimony. It has digital records. It has Brad's own actions in the 24 hours after Suzanne vanished. As we wait for this trial, one question haunts everyone. Will Brad Simpson finally tell the truth? Will he tell Suzanne's family where her body is? Or will he take that secret to his grave? 16 months. That's how long Suzanne Simpson has been missing. 16 months of her children asking questions. 16 months of her mother waiting for closure. 16 months of Suzanne's body lying somewhere, waiting to be found. And 16 months of Brad Simpson refusing to speak. But while Brad remains silent, Suzanne's voice echoes through the evidence she left behind. If I go missing, look for me in a lake. She knew. 2 months before she disappeared, Suzanne knew she was in danger. She knew what Brad was capable of, and she tried to warn people, but it wasn't enough to save her life. On October 6, 2024, Suzanne Simpson ran from her husband into the woods behind their home. A neighbor heard her screaming. Then the screaming stopped. Brad's truck drove away in the middle of the night. When it returned, Suzanne was gone. For the next 24 hours, Brad Simpson executed a cover-up, buying cement, disposing of evidence, burning his electronics, hiding weapons, changing his shoes, asking strangers for directions to the dump. Every single move caught on camera, every purchase creating a digital record, every text message to James Cotter preserved forever. Brad thought he could get away with it. He thought his wealth, his connections, his position in San Antonio society would protect him. He was wrong. His own brother turned against him. Publicly, Brad's refusal to cooperate is unacceptable, Barton Simpson said. This is not how he was raised, and this is not who we are. His daughter turned her grief into activism. Chandler Simpson used Instagram to call out the culture of silence that enabled her mother's death, to demand that Alamo Heights educate youth about domestic violence, to make sure other women don't suffer in silence like Suzanne did. My sibling and I are my mother's voice, soul, and body, Chandler wrote. Suzanne's children are her voice now, speaking the truth Brad refuses to tell. The 5-year-old daughter who witnessed the violence, who told school counselors that daddy hit mommy, who sat in the truck with evidence of her mother's murder just feet away. She's in therapy now, processing trauma no child should ever experience. But her voice, her testimony, could be critical at trial. If Judge Perez grants the prosecution's request for forfeiture by wrongdoing, Suzanne's own voice will speak at trial. The call to her mother at 9:16 p.m. Brad just assaulted me. I'm in pain. The warning to her banker. If I go missing, look for me in a lake. The pattern of abuse. The phone control. The isolation. The escalating violence. Brad tried to silence Suzanne. He cut off her phone. He chased her into the woods. He killed her. But he couldn't erase what she'd already said. He couldn't destroy the record. He couldn't silence her completely. Suzanne left breadcrumbs. And those breadcrumbs are leading prosecutors straight to Brad. The reciprocating saw with her DNA. What does that tell us about how Brad tried to dispose of her body? About the brutality of what he did? The blood in his truck, his own blood. What does that tell us about the struggle? About whether Suzanne fought back in her final moments? The AK-47 with a bullet hole in the stock. What does that tell us about what Brad was planning? About what weapons he had access to? We may never know the full truth of what happened in those woods on October 6, 2024. We may never know exactly how Suzanne died. We may never find her body. But we know Brad killed her. The evidence is overwhelming. And when this case finally goes to trial, and a jury will hear that evidence. They'll see the surveillance footage. They'll hear the witness testimony. They'll see the text messages and the burn site and the DNA evidence. They'll hear about a man who suspended his wife's phone service while she was calling for help. They'll hear about a man who bought cement the morning after his wife disappeared. They'll hear about a man who burned his phones to destroy confessions. They'll hear about a man who hid weapons and saws with his wife's DNA. They'll hear about a man whose own brother said, "He does not seem like the same person," and they'll have to decide. Is there any reasonable doubt? I don't think there is. Brad Simpson killed Suzanne Simpson on October 6, 2024. Then he spent the next day covering up his crime. And now he's spending the rest of his life paying for it. As of February 2026, no new trial date has been set. The case continues to develop. Evidence continues to be processed. Prosecutors continue to build their case. But one day, maybe this year, maybe next, Brad Simpson will stand trial for murder. And when that day comes, Suzanne's voice will speak. Through her children, through her banker, through her mother, through every person she told about Brad's abuse, through the evidence she left behind, through the warning she gave, through the call she made at 9:16 p.m. on October 6, 2024. Suzanne will tell her story. And when she does, Brad Simpson will finally face justice for what he did to the mother of his children, to the woman he promised to love and protect, to the bright light whose life he extinguished in a moment of violence. Her co-workers remember Suzanne's bright smile and her dedication to helping families find their dream homes. Her friends remember how everyone gravitated toward her, how it was hard to find a solo photo of Suzanne because people loved being around her. Her children remember her mashed potatoes and her terrible driving and how she made every birthday special. And someday, when justice is finally served, Suzanne Simpson will be remembered not as a victim, but as a woman who fought back. A woman who left warnings. A woman whose voice couldn't be silenced. Even in death, Suzanne is speaking. And her voice is getting louder. This case is still developing. We will continue to follow it until justice is served. If you or someone you know is experiencing domestic violence, please call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233. Help is available 24/7. Domestic violence doesn't discriminate. It happens in mansions and apartments, in wealthy neighborhoods and struggling communities, to educated women and those without resources. The Simpsons lived in a $1.5 million home. They belonged to exclusive social circles. And none of that protected Suzanne. If you see something, say something. You could save a life. The culture of silence, the code of not getting involved, allowed this to happen. People at the Argyle saw them arguing and did nothing. Neighbors heard screaming and waited. We can't let that happen again. Share the story. Talk about domestic violence. Break the silence that kills women like Suzanne Simpson. Because somewhere right now, there's another woman like Suzanne, living in fear, telling her banker, if I go missing, look for me. And maybe, just maybe, if we speak up, if we break the silence, we can save her life. Suzanne Simpson deserves justice. Her children deserve to know what happened to their mother. Her family deserves closure. And Brad Simpson deserves to spend the rest of his life in prison for what he did. This has been Crime Case Voices. Subscribe for updates on this case and others like it. Remember Suzanne's name. Remember her voice. Remember her light. And never, ever stay silent when you see abuse, because your voice could save a life.